And we are live again.
We're
I know
doing
the
it live.
schedule said 8:30. I said 8:30 can kick rocks. It's been a crazy day. Welcome to your Civil Discord, your weekly dose of radical curiosity. I am one of your hosts, the exhausted, the crazy, the notorious BLG, aka Maurice Jones, out here in People's Republic of Texas, where it has not really cooled down a whole lot. School is starting to get underway for some people across the nation. I know for us,
Wow.
football and volleyball season have kicked off officially today. So, yes, I was in the gym and on the track conditioning people for volleyball. So, that was crazy. But nonetheless, again, here with me more often than I am, as always, is the great Amanda Ajax the Grift, aka the Supreme Overlord of Liberty out there in People's Republic of California. Amanda, how's it going?
It's going all right. Yeah, we're having like lagging audio, lagging video, and we're just making it work. We're doing it live. And we're gonna see how this goes, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm doing all right. Yeah, it is still summer. I don't know why schools are early, aren't they? Because
Yes.
I always grew up where school started the day after Labor Day, and
Hmm.
then it got out in June. And then also the times. Like I grew up in the 9 to 4 era, which is a normal thing. Now
Hmm.
you've got people like now you got school starting at 7:30. People
That's
have
us.
lunch at 9:45. I don't
Yep.
Why are you doing this to
Yep.
children? Why
It
are
is.
you why? No, this I
Yeah.
such a problem with the public school system on this. Such a problem. Like
It
don't
is.
mess with kids' sleep schedule. Like
Yeah.
already abusing them enough. Yeah.
Ours is pretty bad. So we start at 7:15. Yes, the bell rings at 7:10. So we actually start school at 7:15 and we get out at 2:55, which is absolutely crazy. Now school hasn't officially started for us yet. It's just today was the first day that we could actually start practicing sports. And then so as a
Okay.
coach, I went back to school today. But I did see some pictures on Facebook of somebody saying that it was their first day of school. It was, I think it was a first grade and fourth grader. And I was just like, that's really early. Like the 1st of August. I mean, they've got to be getting out like early May. Like
Yeah.
that has got to be their last day of school.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. I'm with you. I remember days where, school would start at 9 and we would get out at 4 and then we would have early outs. Of course, I went to a Department of Defense school when I
All right.
was in kindergarten through second grade, I believe. And we had an early out like every Thursday. It was either every Tuesday or actually it was every Thursday. I'm sorry. Every Thursday we're getting out of school at like 2 o'clock. I think it was like 2 o'clock or something like that. So
Okay. Yeah.
because everybody on post was getting off early, so it allowed us to get off early as well too. So that was crazy, but nonetheless, yes, school is starting back up. I am stupid busy. I've got people in town. I was just telling Amanda that I'm exhausted. I've got people in town from a baby shower because we just had a baby shower on Saturday, which was crazy. Absolutely loved every bit of it. Um, but that was fun, and so we have some friends actually visiting from Canada, which was which I mean, it's cool to just kind of hearing them talk about what's going on in their country and how they and the difference. And they actually live, I mean, not 5 minutes from the actual U.S. Canadian border, so that's actually pretty cool. But just talking with, I mean, last night we had conversations about how do we feel about the Star Spangled Banner and how do we feel about race
It's
relations.
okay. First of all, the Star Spangled Banner is just a terrible song.
Yes,
It's a
it's god
terrible
awful
national
song.
anthem. I know. I like the lyrics are fine. Look, this might be an unpopular opinion, but it also happens to be true. We have a terrible national anthem, and it needs to change. There are very few countries in the history of the world that can walk the line. Now, Star Spangled Banner is good instrumentally, like
Yes.
orchestrally, it's great. There are so few countries whose national anthems are good orchestrally and in terms of singing.
Mhm.
And it kills me that the one that I can think of that just nails both of those is the USSR. Now, the USSR had it had a great national anthem. Soyuz Verushmi Respublik Svobodia. Like, it's fantastic. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful song, and I'm glad it doesn't exist anymore. Our anthem is not great. It's not great. No.
It is not. It is not. So, I mean, but it's been great having them in town. We talked again. We talked about like the race relations and how we feel about cops and things of that nature. And I think they may have been like not necessarily taken aback, but never heard my opinion on things. And I tell them all the time, like, look, I know I'm crazy and I'm in the minority of minorities when it comes to any views in America. So again, do not think that I am the majority of any of it, because I'm not. They were talking about like Canadian freedom fighters. They have Canadian freedom fighters, and I had kind of had an idea of what they were, but they're pretty much like your Proud Boys in America and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it has been a blast having them. It's been a blast. It's absolutely been a blast, and just kind of hearing their side of things. Well, one of them is actually a U.S. citizen, and the other one is a Canadian citizen. And they actually have a daughter who will have dual citizenship here pretty soon. So it's been pretty neat. But again, I'm exhausted.
It's funny. My parents are going to Canada in a couple days, and so I'm not sure if they're prepared for like how restrictive it still is. But we'll see. We'll see
Right.
how they find it, because I know the provinces are different. Canada just confuses me.
Me too. Like
if you feel like this,
does.
if you feel like this intro is long, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's because when we were doing topics, I forgot to put topics in the Google Doc. So I very, very briefly updated Maurice on like what I think we should talk about. And so, yeah, we're I don't know if it's not really stalling. There were some opinions that we just threw back and forth about national anthems and race relations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But Amanda did mention to me that there is an Inflation Reduction Act. And if this sounds anything like I think that it is, it's probably going to do the opposite of reduce inflation, mainly because anytime that there's a bill or anything that Congress decides to pass for any specific reason, just because it has the name in it does not mean that we that's what it actually does.
But
there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I at least the acronym. So usually they have like a punchy acronym. This one isn't, but it's funny because the acronym's IRA, and the IRA will in fact probably hurt your IRA. That's a true thing. But carry on.
No, go ahead. So Amanda, kind of walk us through this whole Inflation Reduction Act, what it supposedly does, how things happen. I started reading an article and was like, there's no way that this does what it's intended to do. But hey, it is what it is.
So it supposedly does a lot of things, right? Depending on whom you ask. Not really talking about reducing inflation, interestingly. Like even in the statements about reducing inflation, even in the statements about the act, they don't really mention its inflation reducing capacities. They talk about how it's going to save the environment. We'll get to that. It's going to not raise taxes on anyone making under 400K, except the text of the bill doesn't quite say that. The text says that nothing in the bill is intended to increase taxes on anyone making under 400K a year. I would like to just, that's sort of like when you're writing an academic piece or whatever, and then you have the introduction that talks about what you're going to do, what this paper is trying to do. It'd be kind of like just me writing that introduction. In this paper, I plan to, and then it ends. I want to show XYZ.
Right.
And then. So yeah, it doesn't intend to increase taxes on anyone making under 400K per year. It also, Joe Biden says that it will, it will compete with China for the future, and it will help win the battle with China we'll get to that too. Now, Penn Wharton has a very helpful model that kind of talks about whether a budget's going to be inflationary or deflationary, or it's very involved. And this is a quote from Penn Wharton, that this bill's impact on inflation is statistically indistinguishable from zero between now and 2031. And I mean, the good news about that is that, I mean, maybe it won't add to inflation, but it's certainly not going to do anything to reduce inflation.
Right.
And Peter Suderman of Reason magazine very helpfully referred to this as a Democrats solving their internal problems bill, which is basically what it is. It's this hodgepodge that Joe Manchin finally capped to. We don't know about Kirsten Sinema. It sucks because I like her and I like her fashion choices, and I just blanked on her name, the pronunciation of it. I'm sure she gets that all the time too, because if you're a Kristen or a Kirsten or a Kirsten, you just know when someone starts to say your name, it's going to be wrong. So anyway, sorry. KS. But at any rate, so it's a lot of jargon about the environment. Yes, there are subsidies. So we will be fighting inflation with subsidies. We are fighting inflation by giving people and corporations, but I repeat myself, money. But
it's not a spending bill.
It's not except subsidies. Yeah. Oh, and we're also going to spend money for IRS enforcement. We're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to give a lot of money, in fact, in this bill to the IRS to enforce crackdowns on people who evade taxes. Now, there's a difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion. One of them is not legal. The other is perfectly legal. And the wealthy have methods of tax avoidance. The less wealthy do not, unless they are taught by Maurice. And then it's avoidance. Maurice can help you strategically invest. Yeah, avoid, not evade, never evade. Evading is very bad.
Never evade. Nope. Right. Don't mess with the government and their money. I just avoid paying them for as long as I can.
There we go. And it says optional, doesn't it? It says voluntary.
Exactly. Exactly.
But there's also money being given to the Postal Service, the USPS, which is libertarians' favorite thing, has a monopoly on postal delivery, on mail delivery, to purchase electric vehicles and charging infrastructure.
Right.
And I will once again remind everyone, coming back to that comment about winning the future with China and competing and so forth, if you are paying for EVs, which you are now as a taxpayer, EVs for the USPS, you are funding the Chinese Communist Party. You are funding the world's worst emitter. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can source the materials that are contained in this infrastructure and in these EVs here and among other environmentally conscientious nations. So I don't understand how this is how we compete with China for the future. Because of our manufacturing policies, this bill's climate provisions are going to fund the CCP's emissions. I know I keep harping on this, and I say I know I keep harping on this, and I keep harping on this and keep saying that I'm doing it because it is so important to get through people's heads. As long as we are outsourcing manufacturing of critical elements to China and to the CCP, then we're not helping the environment.
No.
Our green tech needs to be made in countries that, we can set certain standards that we think are appropriate. And then we need to be exchanging and purchasing green tech from countries that uphold that. Of course, China can still source rare earths, we should not prohibit us from purchasing rare earths there, but there's just no competition now. There's absolutely none. So that's the climate provisions and the Chinese business model all rolled up into
Gotta
one
love it.
there. Yeah,
Gotta
yeah.
love it. No, so I was reading this this bill because I mean, and it talks about how Joe Manchin is now in support of it, and it just kind of references the Build Back Better,
Hmm.
which I had a huge play on that when I was building my fireplace. I was like, I'm creating a YouTube channel that's called Build Black Better, just because I want to talk about Black people building
Please
stuff,
do,
but
please do. I would love that channel so much.
it's like, yeah, Black people building stuff, but no, but it's Joe Manchin literally said, he's like, it's just not a spending bill. He insisted that this is not a spending bill. But yeah, they're spending money in the form of subsidies and things of that nature. It's about fighting inflation. And so I was like, you know what, just let me go to this the Democrats. It's democrats.senate.gov, their little summary, and it says the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 will make a historic down payment. Will make a historic down payment on deficit reduction to
A
fight
down,
inflation. Literally, that's literally what it says. That's
a
literally what
down
it says.
payment.
I was
Oh
like,
dear.
oh my gosh, okay. On a deficit reduction to fight inflation, invest in domestic energy production and manufacturing, and reduce carbon emissions by roughly 40% by 2030. So we're talking in the next 7.5 years, reducing our carbon emissions by 40%. That's a lot. That
How's
is a
China
lot.
gonna do? Yeah,
Yeah,
when we're
exactly.
they're gonna be emitting the carbon for us instead.
Exactly.
They already do that so well.
That's what I've learned. A lot of this carbon emissions is not really reducing the carbon footprint of the world. It's just moving our carbon footprint to somebody else's, and then they are going to foot all of that or whatnot. Because hey, we can
Higher,
say
yeah.
they're not as developed as a country as we are. So hey, we're doing great, but it is what it is. Okay. The bill will also finally allow Medicare to negotiate for prescription drug prices and extend the expanded Affordable Care Act program for 3 years through
Ah,
2025.
and here's the rub, because otherwise, and I'm actually I think this is still might happen. People were going to see their premiums skyrocket right before the midterms.
Yep.
And so now they keep on kicking that can down the road. They once did that unsuccessfully, and everyone got really upset. Like, why did my insurance premium just go up so much? Why am I just because the what you had in place expired. So yeah, we are kicking that can down the road.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how any of this actually reduces inflation. Mainly because I don't think I don't know, and I don't want to speak in absolutes, and I'm trying not to be sarcastic here. I've never ever thought that you could legislate your way out of inflation. Like, I'm not sure that that's maybe it's possible. I don't know how you would go about doing it, but I'm not exactly sure that you could legislate your way out of inflation. Like, we've talked about this ad nauseum. I'm not gonna say ad nauseum, but we've talked about this I mean, in on many different episodes, just discussing what causes inflation and why we are in the situation in which we're in. And I don't think that raising the corporate minimum tax to 15%, or prescription drug pricing reform. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. That in and of itself. And it's great that Amanda always brings up the USSR, because they are a great example of what not to do when it comes to like building price ceilings.
I want to reiterate, take the lessons from the national anthem, leave everything else. Maurice, you have the floor.
Like, I mean, when you talk about creating price ceilings and this, I mean, it is literally, it's basic economics, and I'm not doing that as a pun or a shout out to my boy Thomas Sowell. Like, I'm not doing it for any of that reasons. I like, it is legit basic economics. Like, when you say, hey, you cannot make more You know, your product cannot cost you more than this. You're not going to be able to make more. And so you're just like, okay, what's the point? Like, so you are going to have a shortage regardless. People, there was a toilet paper crisis in 2020. Everybody ran out of toilet paper. Why? Because they could afford it, and the prices weren't raised. And I mean, and so in an economy like that, you don't, people weren't able to react in a way in which you say, hey, let's limit the amount of people who are buying toilet paper. Okay. Same thing with drug pricing. You think that making drugs, and this may sound mean and disgusting, if everybody can afford the drug, then you're not going to have that drug. Like, that's like, it's, if 7.4 billion people in this world can buy it for $1, nobody's making 7.4 billion things of drugs. Like, so that's just economics. You know, it is literally understanding that resources are scarce, and how you divvy up those scarce resources. Like, I mean, that's just what it is. But again, that is part of how they plan on, this is part of their total revenue raised. Okay, so IRS tax enforcement, because you gotta hire people to enforce those tax code, because of the loopholes, which okay, I hate when people use the word loopholes, especially politicians, because it's like, well, we just want to close a tax loophole. Well, then do it. Let's just do it. Well, people are taking advantage of it. They take advantage of it because you put it there. If it's not there, then everybody takes advantage of it. But anyway, speaking of loophole, they literally have a point that says carried interest loophole. Like, I mean, so they have all of these things. They're investing $433 billion, which again is a drop in the bucket when it comes to our debt, when it comes to our budget spending. They're investing energy security, and climate change. $369 billion of that is getting that, and then the Affordable Care Act extension is getting another $64 billion. So total deficit reduction of $3 billion again, which is roughly a few hours of spending when it comes to this government. I mean, maybe that's a couple of days. I'll give them that. That's a few days of spending. You know, how often does they spend money? But I just reading over this and just reading it aloud is just like, oh my gosh, like this does absolutely nothing for inflation reduction, which is in it. Just like the Affordable Care Act was supposed to make things more affordable, and it did the exact opposite. You know, just like the assault rifles ban doesn't ban assault rifles. It only bans assault rifles for the citizens that are considered commonly used firearms, which that's a key word in use, because the Supreme Court ruled in the DC versus, I think it's Heller DC or DC Heller, I can't remember. I know it's
DC
in
Heller,
that ruling, yeah, that that you were allowed to, that the Second Amendment protects against common use firearms, which is a lot. So it is absolutely nuts. This is no reduction of inflation, just all in the name. IRA, we are going to reduce your IRA. That's what it is. I'm stealing that from you, Amanda. Reduce the IRA.
Go for it. Yeah. And no, I agree. You know, it's at least nice that it's not expected to add a ton to inflation, except through subsidies. I love the down payment comment. I really love the down. That's almost as bad as just coming out and saying it puts down collateral. I made a down payment on my car, which is a Dodge Avenger that has great glutes, and I love it very, very much.
Great glutes.
I made a down payment. It does have amazing glutes. Dodges have. You look at those Dodges and you look at the back. Ooh, yeah,
they're like rounded. Tight.
Yeah. So I made a down payment on my car. It took me, I think, 4 years to actually purchase my car. Okay, so there's a down payment, and then over a period of time, maybe there's a reduction, but that doesn't even happen. That doesn't even happen with this bill, per the Penn-Wharton model, which is in fact, it's a very good, very involved model, which I don't understand because I don't have Maurice's economic knowledge.
Oh man, Oh, and here's another part that they have in there. Make biggest corporations and ultra wealthy pay their fair share. Like I anytime I hear that, I just know that you're about to parrot some stupid talking point that I think is completely asinine. When you say make sure that they're paying their fair share, they pay their fair share, pay their fair share. Well, what is fair share? Right? Like it's so I know you said intent, but this says there are no new taxes on families making $400,000 or less, and no new taxes on small businesses. We are cracking tax loopholes and enforcing the tax code. We're
Yeah, I
closing
think that
tax loopholes and
text has
enforcing
a
the tax
yeah,
code. Like
yeah.
I making sure the wealthy pays their fair their fair share. And I think it's uh small businesses. What do you deem as small business? Is it by your actual code of 99 employees or less? Because if you're doing that, then that is roughly most of businesses in America. Like, I mean, when you think of large companies, that I think that is honestly like single digits. How many businesses actually have 100 or more employees? I mean, but and I actually I think it's probably they may deem it as 500 plus employees. Like, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But hey, if you get rid of the loopholes that you claim are there, then it wouldn't be there. Like enforcing the tax code. Maybe how about this? Maybe don't make the tax code so complicated. Like, or maybe don't have me guessing at how much money I owe you, and you just tell me how much it is, just like everything else. You tell me how much I owe you, I pay you the bill, and then we move on. Don't just have me, don't every single year come middle late January, I have to get a W-2, and then I got to go in here and tell you exactly what I feel, what I've done, and what I've done to avoid paying you taxes. Okay. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, this is how much you owe me. No, I'm gonna tell you at the beginning of the year, hey, here's what I'm gonna do here, here, here. You tell me, hey, Maurice, you owe us $2,000 in taxes. Bet. Sounds good. Here's a check. Move on with my life. Instead of you taking it from me every single month, making me, oh my gosh, making me sick to my stomach every single time I get a check and I see 35% of it absolutely gone off the top. Some of it, which I care about because I'm paying into a retirement system, 401k, and some healthcare and things of that nature. But roughly 23% of it is literally going to taxes. Like, oh man, the federal government can kick rocks on those tax loopholes. I will avoid as much taxes as I can. Thank you very much. Keep the loopholes in there. I will enjoy every bit of that.
But not evading them. Never
No,
evading
definitely
them.
do not evade. You do not evade. And I know I say a lot of crazy things. I do. I would never, ever, ever. I'm telling you, just like I tell people this all the time. Hey, don't play with me and my money. Same way with the government. Don't play with the government and their money. They will find you. They will 100% find you. So
they can always make more, as we know.
Exactly. Press a button.
But I want to briefly, so I want to go to Joe Manchin, which there's this dynamic that takes place with Joe Manchin very often where the right will always find this strange new respect for him when he does something that they like. And then the left will find a strange new respect for him when he does something that they like. Joe Manchin is looking out for Joe Manchin and the people, the constituents in the state of West Virginia. He's not acting, well, I shouldn't say he's not acting on principle, first of all, because I'm not going to ascribe motives, but also because, his principles could be his constituents and that's fine.
Right.
But he is looking out for them. All right. So he's going to be politically strategic. No one should be shocked by this support for the bill. And then he's going to do something else that the right's going to like, and the right's going to love him. I almost feel bad for the guy. Like, the right's going to love him, and then he's going to do something like this, and the right's going to hate him, and the left's going to love him, and the left's going to hate him again. I'm just excited to see what Sinema does.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how she figures it out.
I think this will be the kick to the Democrats. The assault weapons ban that just got passed in Congress will be a kick to the Republicans.
Okay.
I think that'll be that may be his, he makes them happy, he makes us happy kind of thing, moving back and forth, which if you haven't noticed or you don't know, I think it happened. I don't even know what day of the week today is. It's Tuesday. I want to say this
Monday.
happened. Did this
It's
happen
Monday.
Monday? Today's
No, it
Monday.
is Monday.
Yeah,
Today
today's
is
Monday.
Monday.
See, look,
Yeah.
and my days shows you how exhausted I am and
No,
how
it's great.
long
I
this
feel
week has
better
been.
because it happens to me too. So
So I want to say they passed this last Thursday or Friday. They passed it with, I think it was a vote of 217 to 213, somewhere around there. It was crazy. So they passed this assault weapons ban. That let's see. I'm trying to figure out the best way I mean, of course, we all know how I feel about it. Like, let's be real. We all know how I feel about it. But it bans any it's a semi-automatic they call it a semi-automatic assault weapon that which again, I don't know how they determine what is what. Because most firearms that are in common use today are literally semi-automatic. Like one pull of the trigger, one bullet flies out of the chamber. Like that is literally how they operate. But it bans that, and it bans their terminology, not mine, large capacity magazines. So anything that is 10 rounds or more is considered banned. And that would literally be every single magazine that I own. Every single one of them, including my handguns, because I am what they call an ammo sexual. So yes, I am,
I've
and
never
I
heard that.
wear that proud. Okay, because every single magazine that I own needs to have, my wife gets mad at me about this all the time. I need at least 15. I need at least 15. Like if I'm going to use it for what it said it's for, then I'm going to then I need at least 15. I mean, we talked about our hero, Mr. Dickin, last week, and he did 10 shots. So imagine if those 10 shots didn't stop the threat, and because maybe the guy was 6'2", 250 pounds, and he hits 8 out of 10 shots, and the threat still isn't down. What do you do now? Like, now it's time for me to reload. Like, come on, no, I'm okay. So it bans large capacity magazines, which for me, large capacity is anything that's over 150 rounds. If you can hold 150 rounds, that's large capacity for me. Everything below that for me is pretty standard. So at least in my opinion. But so it does that, and it supposedly grandfathers current firearm owners into this clause. You're supposed to be grandfathered. However, it talks about safe storage, and it's the only people who are allowed to store firearms are like licensed users, i.e., FFLs, and things of that nature. So if you are a personal person, it's a personal person. If you own your own personal firearms and you're legally not allowed to store these semi-automatic assault weapons, like you're not allowed to store them. So you have to take them to somebody else to store them. It is a hodgepodge of craziness that the Democrats were excited that they passed. I saw a video of Nancy Pelosi doing her little giddy, yes, and her little gremlin smile or whatnot. So, and 2 Republicans actually voted for this, which is absolutely crazy. I can't believe that they did. But hey, go figure. People are crazy.
I'm confused. How do you? Because you have to store, basically, like in California, you have to constantly be storing your firearm.
Right.
So, do you just have to have it out? You just have to have it out, basically.
So
you can't store
correct.
it.
It needs to be.
I have to have the Chekhov gun on the table.
Yes, literally.
There we go. I'm gonna do another Russian.
And that's if it's grandfathered in. If it's grandfathered in under this clause, it has to be like within reach of you. So if I'm sitting at a desk right now, there would, if I had any, they would need to be within reach, or I would not be allowed to have them. Like, it is. I mean, so if you think about it, that's like if you have an electrician come over or whatnot. I'm still an example from one guy who I was listening to, but you have an electrician come over and he walks into your house and you go and answer the door. or whatnot, and then he turns around and sees you have a firearm on your coffee table that is not within reach of you, you have now violated this law. Like, it is absolutely crazy. It is asinine. And of course, again, everybody knows how I feel about firearms. I absolutely love them, for home defense, for whatever you want to use them for. That is not taking another person's life who is not aggressed upon you. I am okay. Like, it is, if you are not threatening anybody, for whatever you want. If you want to collect them, collect them. If you want to go hunt, hunt. If you want to use them for self-defense, do that. If you want to do airsoft stuff, do all that. None of that. I do not care. I don't care what you use it for, as long as you're not killing other people with it. Then we are actually fine. So, but that passed. It is absolutely crazy. But again, this is where I think Joe Manchin is going to give his little, here you go. We're not passing this in the Senate. Even though it passed in the House, and
it won't make the Senate.
No, I highly doubt that it will. If it does, oh my gosh, I don't know how long we gonna have this podcast. Is what we may be going off the air pretty soon, because they gonna shut your boy down, because I will not comply 100% of the time, even though I have a family. Like, I like that. Again, that is my line. It is drawn there. My line, that have been crossed my line. So, but yeah, that is, I don't know when the Senate is going to be looking at that and going over it, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to keep your eyes out on, to keep your eyes out for it. Be on the lookout for it, whatever it is. Y'all know I'm tired. I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're fine, dude. So, you did talk about Nancy Pelosi rubbing her hands together. I want to talk about a good thing that Nancy Pelosi did. Nancy Pelosi took a trip to Taiwan. She's in Taiwan right now. Nancy Pelosi's actually pretty, I'm not going to say outspoken, but is more of a supporter of, more of a vocal supporter, we'll say, of Taiwanese liberty than many Democrats and indeed Republicans. And she has, she's visited Tiananmen. She is the highest ranking U.S. official to visit Taiwan in, I don't want to quote the year and get it wrong, but it's quite a long time. Right. Now, she was planning on taking this trip to Taiwan, and then she was going to not, because either she had COVID or she was exposed to COVID with Joe Biden. So then the trip was off, and now it's back on, and she's headed toward Taiwan. It's interesting to see the horseshoe theory that the anti-liberal left and the far right are both coalescing around their disagreement with Nancy Pelosi's decision to visit Taiwan. On the grounds of, this is escalatory. Really, it's escalatory? It's escalatory for a U.S. citizen to exercise their freedom of movement and take a trip somewhere. It's escalatory for someone to perform a gesture, yes, of support for Taiwanese liberation. If that's escalatory, we have a problem. And what is escalatory is not the deed itself. It is the declaration of it as escalatory, and that is on the CCP. So there were threats made against her by CCP backed journals and journalists who were saying, someone should shoot her plane down. So these are threats against a U.S. official's life, and this do-si-do that Biden did, where on the one hand, he's got this phone call with Xi where he expresses concern over China's practices toward Taiwan. Then he turns around and cautions Pelosi not to go to Taiwan. This is all about having the courage of your convictions. Our policy, our posture with China cannot just be speak softly and actually, no, there's no stick. We're just speaking softly and sometimes a little bit louder. But all talk and no action is very obvious at this point. This is not strategic ambiguity. This is lacking the courage of one's convictions. So I do want to applaud Nancy Pelosi. Yes, her Taiwan trip is a good thing. And I don't appreciate the double talk coming from members of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, by the way, because again, the far right America First people are exactly the same way on this.
Yep.
Are exactly the same way. Yeah, freedom is all very well and good until someone wants to be free to say that another person should be free.
Right. Who would have thought? I mean, I guess it is in our name, civil discord, but we would be giving Nancy Pelosi some kudos or credits after all the dogging that people do on her, and as crazy as she is, and as much as I can't stand her, who would have thought that I would be saying kudos to you? Like, you were literally, I mean, now granted, this is her kind of talking out of both sides of her mouth sometimes too, but I will not do a backhanded compliment because, hey, here you go. Like, you were doing something that you probably, I mean, people that people do not like on both sides. Like, you're going to a country that a world leader, I guess you would call them that, like, doesn't want to acknowledge them. They don't want to acknowledge them.
No, that's
say,
completely
like, hey,
true.
they well, like as far as China being like a world leader in some regard. So
Right. Okay.
they will not acknowledge them. They want to say, hey, they are part of us. They are not independent and things of that nature. And you're saying, no, I'm traveling to, and you use the name that they don't want you to use. Like, so like all of that is kudos to you, Nancy Pelosi, for doing that. I really do applaud you. I wish you'd have been talking about this way back when Hong Kong was tripping. I won't say Hong Kong was tripping, but when Hong Kong was at the height of their protests, and you were talking about like independent and sovereign nations and things of that nature. Wish you'd have said something about that too, as opposed to telling the NBA and Daryl Morey to be quiet and to almost kind of shut up and dribble in that context. But no, like again, for her to travel and like you said, I mean, this is Nancy Pelosi. As much as people don't like her, she is not a nobody. Like, she is Speaker of the House. Like, if two people die, she is like third in line. She's second in line to be president.
Scary.
Like,
that
is a scary thought. That is 100% a scary thought. But you think if Joe Biden goes, and then the black lady who's wearing the blue suit and her pronouns are she and her or whatnot, if she goes as well, then Pelosi is up next, so it's for her to be that high of a ranking and to go into this country, I think makes a statement for her and where she aligns with some things. I also think, and I think that subliminally that makes a statement for the US and them acknowledging like, hey, we're okay with this, China, regardless of whether you think, I mean, Joe Biden may want to proceed with caution. I mean, as most presidents typically do when it comes to China, unless you're President Trump and you are very outspote against the country.
Well, even he's against her taking the trip, by the way.
Right.
He is
not against
that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But this is where it's hard for people to do, but like, you need to, who cares who the person is? What is the act that is being done? Again, and as I previously stated, I don't like Nancy Pelosi. Like, I don't. Heck, there are very few politicians that I like, but when they do something good and they do something that is worthy of me applauding them for doing, I'm going to do that. This is one of those situations, and this is kind of where I feel like, people are blinded by the fact that she is who she is, and she's crazy and she's a nut job, and she may be a lizard person in a human's body, like Skinwalker. We don't know. She may be one of those people, but they're blinded by all of that, and so they don't want to give her the credit, knowing that, hey, this is a big deal. This is a big deal that shows that the U.S. is going to acknowledge Taiwan as its own sovereign nation, as it should. and then we move on because and partly I've got ulterior motives because I want people to recognize Texas as its own sovereign nation when we decide to
Oh
secede too.
boy.
So
Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, that's a different situation,
no,
isn't
for
it?
sure. No, I
Yeah.
know, I
No,
know.
I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. Yeah. No, you know, it was, again, the horseshoe theory was great. Seeing the DSA tweet
Mm,
against Pelosi, and then there are people who are saying, "Oh, well, she's not really doing this for Taiwan. She's doing it to distract from her husband's DUI or something, insider trading." Like, okay, first of all, I doubt that she would do this to distract from stuff around her husband. There are other ways to
right.
do that.
Yeah.
Also, the message that this sends, let's say that's completely true and that she's entirely self-motivated. The message that this sends is really important. That you had a bully who said, hey, this thing, don't do it. You better not do the thing. You really better not do the thing. If we capitulated at that point, then that would be a huge signal. The fact that we did not
Yep.
is also a signal. And
Yep.
so whatever the motivation for her trip, what that signal was is important, and I applaud that signal.
Yes, definitely. It's almost like and pardon me because I've been hanging around a little one and we went to the aquarium, but I was thinking about you guys watch Finding Nemo. Nemo's dad, hey Nemo, don't you touch that butt. Like, don't touch it. Don't touch it. And then he touches it or whatnot. And he's like, I don't care. Now, granted, Nemo's story after that was pretty crazy, and he got sucked up and he had to go fight with Darla and had to break out of the thing, and he had his lucky fin and so forth. You guys know the
Don't
story.
understand the reference, actually. I
never seen Finding Nemo.
I think I might have kind of passively watched it once where it was just on, and I thought it was really terrible. I hated the beginning. I absolutely loathed the beginning, and I really kind of didn't pay attention. So no, I'm not
good.
Part of the Finding Nemo fan club. I know that everyone likes Dory.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Dory is great.
Yeah.
But it was, hey, don't touch the butt, which is the boat. And Nemo was like, I'm going to touch the boat. And he touched it. And it was like, hey, China telling US, hey, don't you dare recognize Taiwan. Don't you dare. Don't you even don't. And they're like, Nancy was like, hey, whatever. And if this is a cover up her husband's whatever, then okay. Like, I mean, I feel like this is pretty good. This is literally I don't want to say this is a big middle finger to said country.
Yeah.
Like, 100%. Like, hey, you can go and kick rocks, like, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it. Kudos to you, Miss Pelosi. I'm sorry, Mrs. Pelosi. I will address you as such.
Nance, nice job, Nance.
Exactly. Out there from California, either representing your state. Kudos to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's represent as a bit. Speaking of, so I doubt that this is the attribution here, but I was listening to Megyn Kelly's podcast today because I listen to it with some frequency. She has good guests on, and she's also just like goals in terms of when I'm however old she is. She looks amazing. She looks amazing for any age, but at any rate. And she was talking about California politicians and, potential challengers to President Biden. And she said
That's so weird.
About what?
Challengers to President Biden.
Yeah, I know. She said something about Gavin Newsom with like this handsome guy and his great hair. And I wasn't the first person. I was not the first person to point out Gavin with the good hair is good hair, but I certainly do it with an alarming amount of frequency that concerns even me, quite frankly. And so, I don't think she's a listener. I just want to say, I might have been the first to say Gavin with the good hair. And it might just be circulating throughout society now in the social discourse. Or maybe people have been commenting on his hair for a long time, but I prefer the first explanation. So we're going to go with that.
Definitely the former. I'm okay with that. With that. So let's see. Did you want to end it there?
We can unless you have other topics or questions.
We were going to talk about like libertarian views that we may have given up on or we have changed over the course of the time, but we can definitely save that for another show.
Or non-libertarian ones. No, because I just remember that I had said that my position on tariffs had evolved in the last in the last episode, and I was thinking after we recorded, I was like, I wonder if Maurice has had any changes of heart on certain issues, but I
have. Okay. But we'll save that for another episode.
Oh, Magoo is interested now. We have a commenter who's intrigued. Magoo, if you have a question, it's your last shot to get in a question. I
know. We will. As Magoo, if he has any questions, as he types it in, please make sure that you share the show with a family member, a loved one, somebody who is in love with the USSR because they produced good things like their national anthem, and somebody who doesn't like the USSR because they had poor economics, which was a big major part of their downfall. So share the show with a friend, leave us that 5-star rating and review. As far as on Apple Podcast, excuse me, sorry, a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify, wherever you catch your podcatchers. Join us live. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We go live once a week. Typically it's Sundays, but again, as you guys have probably noticed, that this has been a crazy week. I don't even know what day of the week it is. I thought it was Tuesday, and it's actually Monday. But subscribe, that way you get a notification anytime we actually go live, which is definitely once a week. And then we leave the live videos up so you can watch as well too. Comment on the videos if you want to know what views have changed. Like Magoo, he wants to know a view of mine that's changed from a libertarian standpoint. Probably, I would say my view on voting has probably changed back to maybe I should vote.
Okay.
Just from the mere fact of, like, especially, I mean, it's really just more so locally, not necessarily on a federal level, but this upcoming 2024 election is interesting to me, because my view on it is, if I'm a voting libertarian and I want to vote my principles, should I do that, or should I vote to keep an idiot out of office? Like, because it's I mean, it goes back to this whole lesser of two evils thing. So if a vote, and I hate this, a vote for somebody is a vote against somebody else. Like I don't subscribe to that logic, but understanding that if Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump or whatnot, would I rather have Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, or would I rather have a Gavin Newsom or another 4 years of Joe Biden? Like, because if I'm voting because I love Dave Smith, absolutely love the man to death. Feel like he and I subscribe to a lot of different a lot of views that are very similar, and so I would love to have him as president. Dave Smith is not winning the presidential nomination. Like, let's be real.
He's an anarchist. I feel like you can't be it.
Right. So he's not winning, and so if I'm in a swing state, thankfully I'm not. Well, at least currently I'm not in a swing state. But if I was in a swing state, my view on voting would probably be very different. And that is something that I've kind of grown to say, like, okay, because from the beginning of I'm an ANCAP, whatever, I'm not subscribing to any of this stuff, to now I'm like, I've still got to live in this world, and I've still got to protect those who are coming after me. And so what is the best way to do that as far as things moving forward? Because again, it's not a utopia, and I know it's not, but I need to make sure that my views on that update as I get older and as my family continues to grow. So that is definitely one thing that has changed. I would say it hasn't fully changed, but is in the process of changing or whatnot. So
Wait,
just
is
my
Wisconsin a
views on
swing
voting.
state?
Yes, it is. Wisconsin is a swing state.
Oh, cool. That is a random question, and I don't know why I asked it at all. No
Yes.
idea why I asked that question. Yeah. But
So,
it's good to know. It's good to know these things.
yes, it is. So if you move to those states, like hey, and again, they're saying Texas may be a swing state in the next 8 years. So
Huh.
I don't
Well, yeah,
necessarily
makes
know if
sense.
that's true or not, but I mean, but that's a very possibility. So I mean, we did stupidly. At least I wasn't living here when that happened, but we did almost elect Beto O'Rourke as our state senator. So, oh, I'm sorry, as our senator, it was ridiculous. So, but nonetheless, that is definitely something that has changed for me. So, but again, do all of those things. Leave us a 5-star rating, review, share the show, share it with a friend, family, or a loved one. Follow us on all forms of social media. I will say all forms, actually, on forms of social media. Sorry, Instagram at Civil Discord Podcast, and call me Maurice. Again, I just finished my fireplace, and I posted it to my story, but I will actually post a picture of it. We'll post it on there as part of my woodworking skills and how great
Part of your
they
Build
are.
Black Better. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Build Black Better. Coming soon to Instagram as well, to Instagram and YouTube. Build Black Better. So follow Amanda on Twitter at Ajax the Griff, and then follow us as well too on Twitter at Civil Discord Pod. Again, anything that's crazy is coming out of me. Anything that is sound and logical is coming out of Amanda for sure. So do all of that, and we will be back again with another episode of Civil Discord, your weekly dose of radical curiosity. Until then, y'all be easy.
Stay fierce.